Hello, welcome. We're here with our Sunday live stream where we're talking about stuff other than wrestling. Um, Today, we're going to talk about horror anime. And we're going to talk about Dragon Ball too, since they decided to drop that in the middle of the week on us. So, we're going to talk about Dragon Ball Daima. And then we're going to talk about Hellsing and Devilman. I was going to actually give Hellsing and Devilman each their own week. But once I stumbled across the Devilman live action movie, and I watched that. Oh boy! But the series are actually more similar than you would think. Between Devilman and Hellsing, they're very similar. They're so similar, in fact, I just decided to push them together. I'm still going to get the manga for both of them. Uh, I'm going to get the Hellsing manga they're going to be releasing over the next couple of months. I think it's from November to February. They're going to start releasing Hellsing manga. I'm going to start picking those up. I know I could go get the big volumes right now, but I want the new editions that they're about to bring out, so I'm gonna get those, and I'm gonna get Devilman. I'm probably gonna get it off of Amazon, the big joint. I try not to get big omnibuy because I like to read through it, and sometimes those things are very very difficult to get through because there's so much material. That's why I still haven't read through entirely Attack on Titan. But we're gonna talk about Dragon Ball first, just to get it out of the way, and then we're gonna get into maybe Hellsing first. So I watched Hellsing the original anime, and then I watched Hellsing Ultimate. Uh, then I had watched the original Devilman anime a long time ago, and I watched Devilman Crybaby over the last couple of days, and then I watched the Devilman live action movie. So I'm pretty familiar with the Devilman property and the Hellsing property, and we're going to talk about those. But first, let me check my audio. So you may hear a little bit of an echo. Because last time I didn't check my audio and nobody told me that I sounded shitty last time because you guys are not my friends. Because last time I didn't check my audio and nobody told me that I sounded shitty last time because you guys are not my friends. All right, so I probably need to do something with this audio. Let's see. It's on speakerphone. Um, let's try this. Let's try this in terms of audio. All right, is it clear? Let's try this in terms of audio. Is it clear? Is it clear? All right, is it? All right, it's clear. All right, so Dragon Ball Daima at New York Comic Con, it was released. What everybody thought was going to be Dragon Ball Magic ended up being an anime called Dragon Ball Daima. Essentially, it was called Dragon Ball Magic until the very last minute, and then they changed the name to Dragon Ball Daima. Daima apparently does not have an English translation, but it is similar to Daimao, which means demon, because he was called Demon King Piccolo in the original Dragon Ball. So I'm guessing it means evil or demon or something like that. It is the 40th anniversary of the original Dragon Ball. And in having the 40th anniversary of the original Dragon Ball, they decided to create a new property that would tap into some of the elements of the original Dragon Ball. One of those elements being Goku being a kid. So this led to a lot of people being very upset, very pissy about Goku being turned into a kid again. This time it's not even Goku, it's the entire cast. Everyone's been turned into a kid, including the Supreme Kai and Master Roshi. This also led to Goten and Trunks being turned into babies. So we're in a it's an interesting scenario going on here. A lot of the Dragon Ball fandom's knee jerk reaction is that they hate it because they wanted a super continuance. I don't know what's going on in the super manga. I'm not sure, but they're adapting some of the movies in the super manga, so I really wouldn't be. I'm not really tripping on that. But they wanted to do something different. Apparently, from what we know, it's going to start next fall, and it will feature more hand-to-hand combat, not so much on key blast and transformations. So it's going to be a traditional Dragon Ball, where it's going to be Kid Goku going on adventures, fighting villains with his bare hands and his power pole, which is, guess what? I I don't hate that. I like it actually. It's different for the Dragon Ball fandom. The Dragon Ball fandom has just gotten so used to new transformations, new big bads, and guess what? That's fine and that's cool. But uh, just making a decision to do something different is really shaking things up. And I don't mind this the subversion of expectations. You know, I think it probably should. WG Phil, what's up? Like saying 97, how you doing? I think it probably should have been a movie, but doing a short series, maybe 12 episodes or something like that. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't have any information, but the average anime is like 12 episodes. You know, so maybe we can go like 12 episodes of Dragon Ball Daima. Look, I'm not too concerned about what the fandom think because the fandom hate everything. Eventually, then they get they warm up to it. Um, so I think once you start getting stuff about it, the animation, the fight scenes, the villains, what's going to happen in the world, and how the universe is going to be affected by this, I think people will get more into it. Right now, they just look at it like, it's just GT. You're like, well, it shares one thing with GT, which is Goku being turned into a kid. I don't think, having one thing similar to something else makes it the same thing. But um, if it was just a repeat of GT, but it was done better, I wouldn't even have a problem with that, But I really kind of backed off of Dragon Ball Z Kai, which I know a lot of people was into. It was basically like remastering the originals, and I didn't really care about that. Um, so I was like, I just kind of backed off, and that's just kind of how I always view things. If I'm not into it, I'm not into it. I just back off of it. But there's a lot of folks who they're not into the premise because they don't know, even though you don't even know what the premise is, uh, because we don't know yet. Only thing we know is what Toriyama put out there, which is that there's some kind of conspiracy which turns Goku and the cast into children, and now he's got to go on some kind of spacefaring adventure with the Supreme Kai and some other people, and I guess that's going to be the story, and it's going to be new characters and a new adventure and all this kind of stuff. I'm all for new adventures, I'm all for Dragon Ball actually being a space. It's not like Goku's going to be wandering the Earth again. He's going to be wandering space. And since Toriyama was only minimally involved in Dragon Ball GT, and he's, seemingly maximally involved with this, he might actually have more ideas of stuff that he wants to do. And I'm okay with it. Go ahead. I know they've been having a conversation on Twitter lately about whether Dragon Ball has become like a regular comic book, like Spider-Man or something like that, with all the different canons and all the different lineages and everything. And I think it has, but it's become more of a franchise than anything. And the original series is over. So I'm looking at everything that comes out from the movies to Super. I'm looking at all that stuff like it's not canon. It's all just fun extra material because everybody still loves Dragon Ball. So that's like when I was a kid and I was hearing about Super Saiyan 5 and all that nonsense, and it never happened. Like, all that stuff was fan fiction, people creating that stuff in their head and all this stuff. That's kind of how I view almost everything that's been released out of Japan in the last 20 years when it comes to Dragon Ball. I like some of it. I don't like other parts of it. There's some things that could be better. But this is just one of the things where it actually looks good. All the chibi characters, they look very cute. It's going to lead to a lot of different kinds of comedy and hijinks. So I'm interested in all of that. You know, so as long as we get something that is somewhat entertaining, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be okay with it. And this doesn't preclude them from doing anything with Super or creating a new movie or anything like that. Basically, they're just saying 40 years of Dragon Ball, which featured Kid Goku, which Toei Animation, Shueisha, whatever, they love them some Kid Goku. They love Goku being a kid. They love having kid characters in Dragon Ball, which is why Goku was. I mean, Goten was a child for so long, and why when they grew up Goku, they immediately brought in Gohan. Kid characters in the Dragon Ball universe is kind of what they wanted. And there's also been a thing with the PG Dragon Ball, which I think has actually been more damaging to the property than Super and hey, we're gonna redo the movies and the manga, redo the movies and the anime. It's been a lot of the change in how the characters look, the lack of blood, the lack of gains. Everybody is all skinny and cute now. It's now an excessive amount of comedy in the series. To the point where I know Dragon Ball is already a gag manga, but now it's become like an excessive amount of comedy in the series now, and a lot of silly comedy too, like we stepping and poop and stuff like that. But I like Dragon Ball Daima as an idea. Um, it's it's interesting because they're going to take it in a different direction where it's going to be apparently adult Goku in a child's body, but it's going to be mostly hand-to-hand combat, which means that we're going to actually get to see old school Dragon Ball style fight scenes, which we haven't seen in a long time. Like, I can tell you the truth. A lot of the best fights were actually in the original Dragon Ball. Goku and Tien, Goku and Krillin, Goku and Piccolo, Goku versus various members of like the Red Ribbon Army and stuff like that. That stuff was actually more fun because it involved tactics and a lot of little unknown um, techniques that they used to use that they no longer use, and because it's all about power levels and ki blast and who can blow up the moon and all that nonsense. So I'm okay with them scaling it back for this movie or for this series or whatever in particular. Um, so I'm okay. And I'm pretty sure Toei and Shueisha and all of them, they're going to love this because they're going to get to sell action figures of Kid Goku and Kid Vegeta and Kid Yamcha. Kid Yamcha still having the scars on his face pop me. That's when I'm not going to lie to you, that's when it won me over. Like when Kid Yamcha still had the scars, I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. I already know this is going to be silly. The Kid Yamcha still got the scars. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. Um, so I'm cool with it. I don't have a problem with this. As long as they don't, I want them to have more of the characters being involved. I don't want them to just be Goku and Supreme Kai and two other characters. I want the entire cast to be more involved, because if it's not going to be about power levels and stuff like that anymore, then you can get Krillin involved now and Yamcha and Tien and all of them. You can get them more involved now, you know. So hmm. Dragon Ball. Yeah, I grew up with Dragon Ball AF. Like I used to see those pictures all the time in school, and I just be like, "What the hell?" Because I didn't know. Shit, I didn't know Dragon Ball was even Japanese at the time. But I was like, I don't know, but okay, sure, it works out just fine, I guess. It says people hate GT, but they grew fond of it. I think certain people grew fond of certain elements of GT. Like the baby arc, I think is far more popular than I remember it being. The same thing, but and you had to know people was really going to like Super Saiyan 4. So and the Shadow Dragons ended up being very popular, but all that stuff in the middle, probably not. Um, you know, Pan was not popular. I didn't come out of that one looking very good. Neither did Trunks. Neither the rest of the cast. I mean, most of it was Tien even in GT. I don't remember was he even in it. Um, but it was people they do warm up to things, because they love it. They eventually get over some of the deficiencies. And since I don't follow things like Dragon Ball Heroes, I don't follow it. I just don't care. But when they do different things, it's going to be off-putting at first. When the canon is changed a little bit, things are going to be off-putting. but then you have to eventually have to get over it and come to accept either it's for you or it's not. But it's not meant to be like One Piece. Like One Piece is 900 episodes or 1,000 episodes or whatever, and it's still one continuous story. Dragon Ball is not one continuous story. You know, they're trying to make it, by placing characters or placing these events in certain timelines. But in reality, the story of Dragon Ball is actually over. You know, like it's the manga has been over for years. So technically, all like I said, all this stuff is not canon. So you don't really think about it too much. They're not changing everything too much. They're adding to the story. They're fleshing out stories, but that's pretty much it. They doing this. It's a similar thing that was going on, I think, with Hellboy and what's the name right now, where Hellboy is technically dead, but they're doing um, Hellboy in Hell and Child Hellboy and all this kind of stuff in order to just keep pumping out comic books because you don't want to end it. But it does have a definitive ending. It hasn't been changed. So, I mean, stuff like that happens. You know, it was like I forget there was a franchise recently. It was a pretty popular franchise where I think the main character actually dies in the first movie or something like that. And then all the other movies are basically prequels. I forget what franchise it is. It'll come to me eventually. But I know that's how the Rambo movies was supposed to be, where the Rambo was supposed to die in the first movies and in the first movie, and then everything else is going to be a prequel. And then they kept him alive at the end. But I don't have a problem with what they're doing with Dragon Ball right now. It's fun. It's different. You know, I don't understand what's the big deal about. Um, you see something new that you haven't seen before versus something that you just read in a magazine or in a tankobon. Uh, I'm okay with nobody's ever seen this before, so now we all learned about this thing together. Versus some people read the manga, so they know what's going on and they know what's happening, and then they're gonna spend a great deal of time bitching about the changes in the manga and the changes and yada yada. Just give us something new, something nobody's ever seen before. That way, it can actually be interesting. WG Phil says, ironically, AF was done by Toyotaro, so him making a widespread April Fools that America bought as legit to be the Triple H of Dragon Ball is some long-term storytelling. See, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that Toyotaro did Dragon Ball AF. All I know is I just kept seeing these wild pictures of like Super Saiyan 5 and Super Saiyan 6. I'm like, wait a minute. How are we gonna get there? But I didn't know. But here we are. So Dragon Ball Daima is fun. It looks fun. It's gonna be PG. It's gonna be family friendly. They're gonna make a ton of money off of action figures and collectibles, which people are gonna go out and buy. So they're doing this specifically, not to specifically screw with the fandom, but specifically for the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball. They want to celebrate the manga that started it all, and in that manga, Goku was a kid. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. You know, it's not. It doesn't bother me. Let's put it like that. So Dragon Ball Daima, I'm on board. So we gotta wait a year or so before it actually comes out. But that year is gonna blow by as people try to nip at every little bit of information that come from this thing. And then the manga is still gonna be coming out too. And they'll probably be creating another movie, or there'll probably be some more stuff coming out between now and the release of Daima. Probably a new video game and all this kind of stuff. There's gonna be plenty of Dragon Ball stuff out there. It's not just gonna be like it's Daima and nothing else. That's another thing that kind of really, made me laugh when people started getting really upset about it. Because I was like, look, literally, this is just one thing among a sea of other things that, Dragon Ball related. There's going to be tons of Dragon Ball material out there. We're going to be all right. Okay? Especially people who are hardcore fans who play Xenoverse and follow heroes and all that. You guys are probably, you're going to snap your fingers and Daima going to have come and gone. And it's going to be one of your favorite things in the world when you see something silly happen in it, or or something like that. Like people got so excited because Piccolo had a house and superhero. I remember people hating superhero too because they're like, oh no, it's the Great Saiyan Man. He's going to be in it. Oh, I hate the Great Saiyan Man. But they ended up loving it. So it is. It was fine. Yeah, Geekdom was very excited because he ended up being right. But I think that it was interesting watching him sweat for a little while though. But I think he pretty much knew what it was from the beginning, and you know he seems to have pretty accurate leakers, and he seems to do a good job of not being in a rush to put stuff out, which is always smart. Don't be first, be right. You know, so he's pretty smart. He doesn't just rush to throw stuff out there. All right, we talked about Dragon Ball Daima. Let's talk about let's go with Hellsing first. How about that? All right, so I watched Hellsing Ultimate, which apparently is the official anime, the manga canon anime. The original OG Hellsing was okay. The story, I found it to be very interesting. Of course, I thought it was better in Ultimate. It made more sense. Clearly, you could tell from the original Hellsing that the anime was made probably concurrently with the manga or before the manga was complete, because it's a completely different ending to that thing. But uh ultimately, let's talk about this thing. All right, so what is Hellsing? Hellsing is a 10 issue, well, 10 not 10 issue, a 10 episode manga. Some of the episodes are 40 minutes, some are an hour, which made them kind of mini movies or OVAs, which is what took me so long to watch it, because I'm like, oh brother, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch it. But once you start getting into it, and the beautiful animation, it was a breeze to watch. It follows the story of the Hellsing organization, which is a monster hunting organization set in England. The main characters are Integra Hellsing, who is the leader of this organization, her pet vampire Alucard, and his pet Ceres Victoria, whom he saves in the first episode or early in the series. And she is the character that you essentially follow through the Hellsing organization, as she's, a virgin police officer who is overwhelmed by vampires, and in order to save her life, Alucard gives her his blood. So you get vampirism. There's a lot of vampirism in here, clearly, because it's a vampire manga and TV show. So there's a lot of horror, blood, and guts. Well, the interesting bit is that you're introduced to the idea of ghouls, and that ghouls are people who the vampires have bitten, and now they are essentially the slaves of the vampire. They're soulless unless they are virgins. Then they're turned into vampires. At least I think that's how it works. And so in the early part of the episodes, you see basically Alucard is basically just hunting crazy vampires who do weird stuff like kill human beings for fun and do nothing more. And then you get into the conspiracy element where they start finding synthetic vampires that are made with microchips or some nonsense. It's not fully explained, okay? But it's been like microchipped ghouls or whatever, and you see that it's tied to Nazi Germany, which was not my favorite reveal. I'm just so bored of Nazis. But it ended up being tied to Nazis in the past who are returning. And it makes sense in the end when you realize that the Nazis believed in the occult. They also believed in the Ubermensch and trying to create some kind of super soldier. And that's essentially what was going on here. They were trying to create their own Alucard. At least this is what the Major says initially. And then, of course, his idea is also to create a world of endless war, where essentially the battle never ends. And so he wants to have his own Alucard, where he can just wage war on every country in the world, pretty much at will, and never be defeated. So they created these Nazi vampires through scientific experiments. Some of them are more dangerous than others, and that's basically the villain set. And then you also have sort of an organization that's kind of stuck in the middle. That's called the Iscariot organization, where you have Alexander Anderson, who is what they call a regenerator. He's a human being who hunts vampires, but he has the ability to um, regenerate. And he's not easy to kill. He's not a run of the mill, easy to kill human being. And this Iscariot organization, they are a rival organization to Hellsing. Essentially, the main difference here is that the Iscariots are humans who are fighting on behalf of, they're basically religious zealots fighting on behalf of the Vatican, which means the Pope and all this kind of stuff. While the Hellsing organization, while they're not expressly atheistic, it comes across that way, where, Integra doesn't really have a relationship with like God. So, but as you go through the story, there's times where the Iscariot organization and Hellsing are working together. There's times where they're fighting. So, that's kind of the set. They're in the middle. And I think, let me look at my notes because I forget. The Nazis actually, and they invade, the Hellsing organization pretty early in the series. I think it was like episode 2 or 3 where they actually invade. It was episode 2 actually, where these two guys, I think it's called the Valentine brothers, they invade the Hellsing organization and kill like 90% of the mercs that work there, and end up working together with well, I shouldn't say they're mercs because that was going to cause some confusion. They kill a bunch of the guys who worked in the Hellsing organization. I think they said 80% of the staff was killed or something like that. And this leads to Integra hiring some mercenaries to help them hunt Nazis in South America. And this, of course, creates an opportunity for Victoria to learn about the Hellsing organization, learn about Alucard, learn about Walter the Butler, and you learn a little bit about her too. She's been turned into a vampire, but she refuses to drink blood. She also wants to sleep in a bed. She doesn't want to sleep in a coffin. And then you learn how vampires work in this universe through Sarah's Victoria. Because she refuses to drink blood, she's fairly weak, so she has to use weapons. Alucard chooses to use weapons because it's kind of easier. But he has like an indescribable power set, and it was kind of frustrating as the show went on that there's nothing this guy can't survive, and there's nothing he can't do. Like, I was just kind of like, holy shit, how can you, like, there's nothing he cannot do. It's very weird for you to write a hero that is like that. But Victoria, because she's weak, she's utilizing heavy armaments and different things like that. But she's also, kind of a sweet girl. So she kind of goes through a very interesting situation where she's a vampire and she's stronger than everybody else, but she's still the same person that she was before she was turned. So, all these guys are sexually harassing her, pinching her butt, and trying to steal kisses from her and stuff like that. And it's an interesting dynamic to see, especially once you learn a little bit more about the universe. So, let's see. Where should I mean, that's basically the entire story right there until the end. There's various individuals going involved, and then you hit, I think, episode 5 is where the Nazis invade England, and then you just get bloodbaths for the next 5 episodes where there's just tons of people dying, and innocent people just being murdered and chewed on and killed and beaten, and it's so bloody and violent. So they take a simple story and then they wrapped it in gore, and it became you know, a pretty nutty story at that point. Like again, the animation and everything made it very cool. The Nazi vampires, if I'm going to throw some criticism in there, they don't get a lot of time in turn for you to actually care about who they are, and maybe that's part of the plan is that they didn't want you to care about who the vampires are. But then the one vampire who can apparently be everywhere and nowhere at once. Well, I guess they based it off of Schrodinger's cat, whether you don't know whether the cat's in the box or not. Um, that character seemed pretty important. Like we needed to kind of know how the power set of that character works, and I'm not sure it was ever fully explained how the power set of that character worked. Only thing is it's a vampire, so but these vampires can walk around in sunlight and you can blow their heads off and they're still alive. All these various things. And it becomes an important element later because this Nazi vampire mixes its blood with Alucard, and therefore its powers now start to work on Alucard. And this is how the Nazi plans to defeat Alucard. And this is the interesting bit for me because this Nazi commander, he's created this perfect scenario in which England, all of England, turned into one gigantic battlefield. So you got the Iscariot organization. They have decided they're going to invade England too, because they're going to kill the Hellsing organization, which includes Alucard, and they're going to kill all the Nazis too. So they invade. The Nazis have invaded, and now the Hellsing organization, they're coming back from South America, and they're a little late to because the heroes have to always be like a step or two behind. So this gives Anderson an opportunity to fight Alucard, and this gives you get a nice little turn from Walter, who was the butler for Integra. Ever since she was a child, he turns heel and becomes a Nazi. So that's a spoiler, but that stuff becomes important because at the heart of Hellsing this is about humanity. Now, you may say, Mongo, every story written by human beings is about humanity. That part is absolutely true. You can, as a human being, you cannot write about anything other than human beings. So, but the difference is the perspective of human beings. Alucard has such great reverence for humans, and that's why he chooses to be, even though he's pretty much all powerful, he chooses to be sort of a servant of Integra because he has such great reverence for human beings. And he even gives, like during the battle with Anderson, he says that Anderson has this crystal or whatever. It's going to give him special powers. It's going to, I don't know if it's going to make him undead or whatever. I was confused by this point, okay? But Alucard told him, look, you and I are going to fight. I'm going to give you the opportunity to defeat me. Anderson has been waiting for this specific moment where Alucard has unleashed all of the various souls that live within him. This is going to be kind of confusing. So let me slow down. Alucard as a vampire has fed upon thousands of people. And in this universe, when you feed upon people, they still live within you. So Alucard, in order to combat the Nazis, unleashed all of the people who live within him. So there's like 1 million souls within him or whatever. And his real body still exists within him. So Anderson sees the real face of Alucard and sees it as an opportunity to kill him. And from that perspective, Alucard is like, okay, now you want to try to actually kill me. All right, let's go for it. But only a human being can kill me. I will never fall to another monster. And Anderson sees that as a human being, he's limited. He's probably not going to be able to defeat Alucard as a human being. So that's where he's going to bring this crystal out. He's going to stab himself with it and give himself special powers. At this point, Alucard pleads with him not to do this. And it's an interesting bit. I'm going to try to find it in my notes. Because it was it was such an interesting thing. It was in like episode, is it 9? No, it wasn't episode 9. That was when he fought Walter. So it's got to be like episode 8 or something like that. Um, let's see. Was it? Yeah, it was episode 8. So they have the conversation where Anderson threatens to basically forego his humanity in order to defeat Alucard, and Alucard says only a human being should be able to defeat me, and that Anderson is succumbing to power. Basically, he cares more about winning and about power than about his humanity. And theoretically, he finally ends throwing away his humanity. He gets the power to strike down Alucard, and he actually does it by throwing a sword through Alucard's head. And you end the episode thinking that Alucard is dead, but they pump fake that so many times in the series, I don't know what to tell you, but that's generally the idea. Also, during this part is when you realize that Alucard is Dracula, because he actually has I think they go through his backstory too in this episode. But Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards anyway, right? So you should have been able to figure that part out. But you get this wonderful conversation where Anderson is, even though he believes in God, he doesn't believe in himself. He doesn't trust himself. He doesn't trust in the power that God has given him. So he goes to some kind of occult weapon as an attempt to try to kill Alucard. So what does it say about his humanity? And his faith. As a man of faith, because he's wearing the cross and everything, he still throws away his humanity for the opportunity to kill Alucard. And it says a lot, especially when you look at how humans are treated in the series. Like, there are some humans that are you get a lot of reverence for. Like, they're not typically just fodder in the series. Like, most of them are fodder, by the way, but not all of them. And he's, positioned as being like this really powerful human being. But he threw away his humanity in an attempt to kill Alucard and failed. And it was really sad. I think it was episode 9 where you really get, now it was it episode 9? Let me take a look. I have so many notes for so much stuff laying around here. But yeah, he tells Anderson again that only a human can hope to destroy a monster, and that Anderson had become a monster himself, and he's going to be, basically, he's the king of monsters, and he can't be defeated by another monster. And Anderson is dying, and he lays on the ground and he starts to cry, and he says that demons don't cry. And then he looks up at Alucard and he says that you're cursed to walk the earth. I'm going to die. I may see you in hell, but I'll be there before you get there. While you're cursed to walk this earth forever. And that's when you kind of get why Alucard has such reverence for humans. Is that he forsook his humanity. He is no longer human. And in a sense, he has no purpose. He has no purpose for living. He just lives because he lives. And then you realize that Integra gives him purpose. Serving her and her goals, noble as they are, gives his life purpose. And that's an interesting element of the story. Because, I know you could look at it from face value where he calls her master all the time. There's a lot of that stuff in here. But you get the idea that what is the purpose of a life that never ends? And Anderson, even though he forsaked his humanity, he still died like a human. He died with the rest of the humans in the Battle of England. He turned himself into something else, but he still, pretty much died. Which is the one thing Alucard can't seem to do. Alucard can't die. So that was very interesting. And then shortly after this, we get Walter turning heel. Walter is the longtime butler of Integra, and he is also a human being and a vampire hunter. But he's had this issue underneath the surface where he has been, I guess you could say, jealous or kind of pissy about a vampire, because he's been a vampire hunter his whole life, but he has to share Integra with this vampire. And he's always wanted to kill Alucard too. So apparently he gave himself to the Nazis and they operated on him to give him the ability to go back to being in his prime so that he could fight Alucard. And you ultimately start getting what's happening in episode 8 when Anderson throws his humanity away. And in episode 9 when Walter throws his humanity away. And then episode 10 where you finally get the backstory of the Nazi commander. And you realize he's the most human of them all. He gives a little bit of a speech here where he says that he thinks Alucard is perfect. He's a perfect person. He could do anything. And he can never die. But the Nazi commander himself can never be undead. It's just not within him to do so. And he says he plans to gain by losing. This is something that he says throughout the series, that death will be his victory. And you just kind of figure out like what's going on here. And you think like it's okay, it's some kind of kamikaze mission, or it's a suicide mission, which and to a degree it is. I don't think he's expected to survive all of this. But once they start explaining why all of these people have become vampires and why he wants to have his own Alucard, he just never did it to himself. He talks about what Alucard had done to himself. And that is, in consuming hundreds of thousands of people, he has brought all of those people into himself. And at this point, Sarah's Victoria she's drunk blood. She bit the man that she was in love with. She had consumed him. And now he is living within her, and all this kind of stuff, right? So the Nazi commander says, I can never share, what's mine is mine. I can never share that with somebody else. And he starts talking about how Alucard has been ruined. He was perfect. He's perfect. But at the same time, he's so impure. And then that's when you really kind of think about it, and it makes sense because the Nazis were obsessed with purity. Especially like racial purity. So the Nazi who looks at Alucard like he's an Ubermensch, but he's so impure because he has all of these other people living inside of him. And it makes sense that he has this sort of very nuanced, complex feeling about Alucard, where he loves him, he wants to have his own, but he also wants to be the one to kill him. And he can't kill him, clearly. He's a human being. There's nothing he can do. But he can create a situation in which Alucard can die. And so this is where we get the plan, where the Nazi commander has thrown waves and waves and waves of human beings into this battle. All these people in England have been murdered. The Iscariot organization, all those people have been murdered. Walter, he's still alive somehow. But so many other people have been killed. And Alucard is absorbing all of the blood from all of these people. And then we get that weird Nazi vampire cuts his own head off. His blood mixes in with all the blood that Alucard is absorbing. And now his powers is within Alucard. So now he's creating this sort of illusion where, and this is where things got really confusing for me, because I don't know what this power set is, So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the power set of this character? But apparently it has some kind of illusory power where you can't recognize who you are, or you can't separate reality from fantasy and all this kind of stuff. And when his blood mixes with Alucard's blood, it starts to affect all the different personalities that is within Alucard. So the Nazi wins because Alucard doesn't know who or what he is. He's still conscious, but he doesn't have a sense of self. So all of these various personalities within him are conflicting and different things like that. It makes him pretty much useless. So for the final stretch of the series, which is probably about 10 or 15 minutes, the Nazi he wins. Integra is there and she's very upset that Alucard is now under this spell. You know, like this is the fourth or fifth pump fake for Alucard being dead though. But he kind of fades away. Like he doesn't have a sense of self. So he fades away. And now it's just Victoria and Integra and they're going out. He's a robot. That was kind of the weirdest fucking thing in the entire series. Like there were cyborgs in this universe the whole time, and I didn't know. Like he's the only fucking cyborg in the entire series. So the Nazi says that he gave everything. Oh, and they go by the numbers of how many soldiers he sacrificed, how many soldiers the Iscariot sacrificed. This entire scenario, he gave everything he had to take away everything that Alucard has. And in doing so, he screws Walter, who was the guy that was supposed to try to defeat Alucard. And Walter was not going to win anyway, but because his body was given out. It was kind of a side effect of him being a Nazi experiment. And it was a very interesting bit because the series seems to be set up for Alucard to be defeated and to lose. Because he was so cocky and he was so prideful that it almost made it poetic that it was like the one thing that he couldn't survive. So Victoria and Integra, they killed the Nazi commander. They burned the giant blimp. All the Nazis are dead. Alucard is trapped in this infinite Tsukiyomi or whatever the fuck it was. And we're like, okay, game over. It goes into the future. Integra is old. Victoria her eye has somehow come back because she had gotten really brutally dismembered by a Nazi vampire who, cut her eyeballs out and cut her arm off and all this kind of stuff. And then you get a sense at the end that Alucard is still alive. So he comes back and he's going to bite Victoria. Not bite Victoria, but bite Integra. And she wakes up and she catches him. And he still is telling the story that it took him 30 years to get out of this illusion. He had to kill every single soul that was within him. I think he said 3 million souls within him had to die so that he could figure out who he was. So this is a story about, of course, individuality versus collectivism. That some people have this collective mentality, and it's easy for you to get lost in the collective. It's called the madness of crowds for a reason, right? So Alucard, the big victory for the Nazi was to create this madness of crowds within Alucard where he wouldn't be able to tell up from down or what personality is actually him. And Alucard took the time to kill every individual. It took him 30 years to do it, but he's immortal, so it was nothing to him. It just, it was just, a matter of time. And he finally found himself again. So then you really kind of realize at the end, he's like, look, it's been 30 years I haven't had anything to eat. So that's why he's going to bite Integra. But then Integra bites her finger and she feeds him some blood. And it's said throughout the series that Integra is a virgin. And one of the things that matters quite a bit, and I don't know if you guys watch slasher movies, is that in horror movies there's almost always a virgin. Either they're a literal virgin or there's somebody who represents some level of purity. There's somebody who represents purity. And Integra is that person in this series because Victoria is the only other virgin. and she falls in love with a mercenary. She doesn't have sex with him. There's no sex in here, but she ingests his blood, and now he and he alone exists within her. So they're together. They're one. It's kind of like a spiritual marriage. But Integra has had nothing like that. You know, she's not related at all. So she has a very special relationship with Alucard where she shares her blood with him. And that's when you kind of get the idea that the old vampire romance thing, where he saved Integra when she was little because he was unlocked when she was being hunted by her uncle who was going to kill her and take over the organization. He was unlocked at that point in time. And he's been her protector. And he's the closest thing to a lover that she's ever had. Because even though she's old and gray, to him, she hasn't changed. And he's very sweet to her. And it's a very interesting relationship that the two of them have, even at the end. And I liked it. I thought it was very good. Hellsing is very good. It was a really good series. So, looking at some of the themes and some of the storylines or whatever, there's a lot of master and servant in the series. And usually the masters and the servants comes in threes, where you have the vampires. They are the masters of the ghouls. But oftentimes, they're the servants of humans. Like the Nazis, they create vampires. So the Nazi commander is a human, and the Nazi scientist is also a human. And they're creating vampires who listen to them. So they're the masters. The humans are the masters. The vampires are their servants. And then the ghouls are the servants of the vampires. And even in the Hellsing organization, Integra is the master. And Alucard is the servant. And Victoria, she's a vampire, but she she's been made a vampire by Alucard. And she plays sort of the ghoul role, where she does whatever Alucard tells her to do, but she's not like a brainless zombie like the ghouls are. So you get a lot of the master-servant stuff throughout the entire series. Another one of the beautiful themes is restraint. Each character has a certain element of restraint built into them. For Integra, it's the fact that she's always been a virgin. So that's sexual restraint. Alucard has always been his power. He never completely shows what he can do. He only does enough to kill whoever he needs to kill. But at the end, he completely takes the chains off in order to end this entire war. And you can see that he can do like this incredible, unfathomable shit. Like there's no depth to his abilities. So you actually take, into account what he was doing earlier. And you're like, wow, he was showing a tremendous amount of restraint. Victoria, she's also physically a virgin. But she, of course, has to ingest the mercenary she fell in love with. But her restraint was she was a vampire who refused to drink blood. She only drank the blood of one person. And that wasn't even to save her own life. She drank the guy's blood because the Nazi vampire had offended him. The Nazi vampire that called him like a maggot or a scum or something like that. And she was so offended by that she felt like he should avenge himself. So she bit him, drunk his blood. And once they became one, they overcame that Nazi vampire. And he became like a permanent part of her personality or whatever. So that was incredible restraint on Victoria's part, even though she did eventually bite somebody else. But then when you realize 30 years into the future, she still bitten only one person. So we don't know how long it took for her when she was turned to when she, only bit that one guy. But no matter how much blood she was surrounded with, she only drank blood on her own. She was, of course, forced to drink blood once, which was, she was coerced. But She only drank blood on her own one time. So Anderson is another one. You see, he shows a lot of restraint, in so much as he wants to fight Alucard, and he actually fights him earlier in the series, but he decides to pull back. As he figures out his attacks are not really working out, and also he works for an organization. This organization, I'm talking about the Iscariots here. So he has a great deal of restraint of not wanting to go around killing a bunch of the vampires and stuff like that. So that's very interesting too. Um, the religious elements, the religious themes, of course, the Iscariots are extreme Catholics, but also Alucard. He seems to almost worship Integra, um, and in some ways, he almost worships humans, and he sees humans as being very valuable. And it's difficult to suss out why. And then you kind of get at the end where, you know, human beings, they have a fleeting life, and things, everything they do matters, so he kind of appreciates humanity. And humanity, of course, is another running thread I talked about a lot with like Anderson with the religious stuff and how he sacrificed his humanity in an attempt to kill Alucard. And then Walter does the exact same thing. Both of them are vampire hunters who sacrifice their humanity in an attempt to try to kill Alucard. The Nazi commander, he sacrificed his humanity too. He became a cyborg in an attempt to try to kill Alucard. But that's a surprise that you don't get until Alucard's already been caught in the infinite Tsukiyomi. Victoria is another one. She wants to maintain her humanity, which is why she refuses to drink blood, why she doesn't want to sleep in a coffin, and she's trying to be as normal as possible. So it's a very interesting bit with her as well. So you also get the collective identity. It's another theme. Alucard has all these different personalities within him, literally collective identity. Same thing with Sarah's Victoria, where she ingests one person, and now she's got two personalities within her. But then you have the Nazi commander, and the Nazi commander has a collective identity, but it's not the same way. His collective identity is that he's a Nazi, and Nazism is a collectivist attitude, and so he has sort of that going for him. You also have a lot of different things like that. You have, I think I talked about purity already, where Integra being a virgin, she's very pure. The major, the Nazi commander, he's also quite pure in terms of he did not try to make himself into a vampire, and he tries at least to be as human as possible, even though he ends up being a cyborg at the end. Victoria was a virgin. She was unsullied before, Alucard bit her. And Alucard himself is even somewhat pure, in so much as he is a monster with a human heart, which is another thing we're going to talk about when it comes to Devilman, which is why I say that these creatures are so similar, So there's a lot going on in Hellsing, and it's not a long series at all, but it's very good. It reminded me a lot of the original Hellsing. Reminded me a lot of Gungrave, like the animation. I don't know if you guys ever watched Gungrave. It would make a pretty good horror thing to watch. I watch Gungrave because if we're serious, but that might actually make a good It's not as much of a horror though. It's more of a if you watch the anime, it's more of a crime, mafia, sci-fi kind of thing. But it has like monsters and stuff in it. But Hellsing is actually much better than I thought it was going to be. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. All right, so that's Hellsing. Hellsing ruled. It was very good. I'm still going to get the manga, and we may have to revisit this in the future after I read the manga. So So I guess next is Devilman. So I watched the original Devilman anime from like I think it's the 1980s or the 70s or something like that. And Devilman is essentially a superhero in that joint. It's very different from Devilman Crybaby, very different from the movie. It's so different, in fact, that it might as well just be its own completely different thing because the changes that they made in the original. Now, I watched the original a long time ago. I probably watched it like last year. So I'm not going to talk too much about um, that because I didn't take notes on that and it was so long ago. And I watched it purely for fun. I didn't watch it to discuss it with you guys. But Devilman Crybaby, which was on Netflix, I did watch that for you. And um, Devilman, Devilman Crybaby. For starters, it was on that Netflix stuff. No way. I don't like Netflix. I don't like Netflix. Stone Mexican guy, are you just getting into anime? I've been watching anime for 30 years, guy. So, I've been watching anime for 30 years. But some of the older ones I have to go back and watch because most of the anime that I did watch was stuff that was already on TV. You know, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo. I didn't get into let's go into the bins and start watching obscure anime until probably about 10 years ago when I started just picking up random anime DVDs and popping them into the DVD player. And then once you online, you have access to pretty much everything. And so then, you can actually look into even more obscure stuff. Like I watched a couple of episodes of Cutie Honey and I didn't even know that shit even existed. I didn't watch all of it. I just watched like an episode or two. But yeah, I've been watching anime for like 30 years, man. But some of this stuff is I'm going back and rewatching like Knights of the Zodiac. I went back and rewatched a large part of that. But Devilman Crybaby, let's not distract too much. Okay, so Devilman Crybaby, I didn't really care for the animation, and there was an excessive amount of sex and Akira night emissions. I don't know if that stuff is in the manga, but it felt like it was very egregious. Like him just waking up in cold sweats covered in nut. Like what the fuck? Why do we need to have that in here? Like I don't know. Um of course there was like butt sex in here and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a little much. But Devilman is a very simple story. There's a kid named Akira. He's got a friend named Rio. And Akira and Rio, they go to a party, at least in this anime. And this is where Rio tells him that demons really exist. And within him is the power of a demon named Amon. And Rio puts him in a position where Amon has to awaken within Akira. And Akira decides he's going to be the savior of humans, the Devil Man. He's going to protect humans. And it's how many episodes is this? It's 10. 10, I think. So a lot of the series is uh Akira showing up fighting various demons that have killed humans and him avenging them in some weird way. Um Also, you get to see how callous and evil Rio is, as he is kind of a partner. He's kind of the one guy who knows about Akira, and he's killing humans that know about Akira. So if a human finds out that Akira is the Devil Man, he's killing them. And so you get the idea that something's wrong with this Rio guy. Like he ain't quite on the up and up. Now it's completely different in the live action movie, which we get to that. We're gonna talk about it a little bit. Um, you so where would I begin in telling the story? Okay, I think episode 7. This is where you get the conversation that Rio thinks that human beings is are weak and that they're not meant to last forever, and he hates humans. He's not a big fan of these other human beings. Rio is. And he says that humans are going to self-destruct. And this leads to Akira and Rio having a falling out, where Rio says that I made you, Devilman. And you kind of get the idea that is very, very interesting. Because he says, oh yeah, I made you, Devilman. So then in episode 8, Rio goes on television and exposes that demons exist. That a lot of the various violent deaths that have been going on across Japan and soon the world is caused by demons, and that the demons are hiding within human beings, and eradication is necessary. Then he also exposes that Akira is a demon, and has video evidence because apparently he recorded Akira when he first turned into Devilman. So this is a heel turn. You know, like you see that Rio is an asshole. Like, oh, this guy, he sucks. So he started saying that, oh, you know, all those people who might be, you know, dissatisfied with the world, those people are more likely to be demons than others. And for, you know, you kind of figure like, why would anybody listen to this random kid? As he tells you that pretty much anybody who could be upset with the world is probably a demon. So episode 9, all shit hits the fan. There's a demon defense force where human beings are now going around hunting demons and they're killing them. So Akira is trying to stop this. Now, the thing with the Devilman is that he's got a demon body but a human heart. He's in love with Miki, I'm sorry, the girl. He lives with her family. He doesn't have family. He was raised by her family, and he's in love with her. And part of the reason why he became Devilman is because he wanted to protect her. And while he chooses to use his powers this way, he didn't have much of a choice to becoming Devilman. Let's be that. So eventually, they do the old Superman stuff where he kind of lies about it for a little while before he finally reveals who he is. And Mickey believes that he's not a demon. He still has a human heart. And that's one of the stories going throughout the series, is that some of the demons are not violent, you know, idiots. Some of them are people just like you and me. And the humans are the ones who are heartless because they're going around in lynch mobs killing people. And the angry humans, they find out that Akira lives with Mickey and they stage her house. You know, and they invade her house and they murder her family. You know, and you kind of get this really horrible scene, and it's not in the original anime. This really horrible scene of Mickey being murdered and her head put on a pike, and it's incredibly violent and viscerally fucked up. All right, it's very fucked up. So Akira eventually ends up confronting Rio about why he betrayed him. Why did he betray humanity? And then you find out he didn't really betray humanity because he's not human. He's actually Satan. Like, literally. Rio is literally Satan and says that he was the one fusing humans with demons. And his plan was to completely eradicate humans. And so he says, I made you, Devilman. I picked that demon to be inside you. I made you, Devilman. I made you, Devilman, because the two of them were best friends. And he wants him to help him eradicate all the humans. But Akira's like, fuck no. I'm going to create an army of Devilmen and we're going to protect the humans. And so him and Rio fight. And Rio kills him. And so... But they did it in a very interesting way where the two of them are exhausted, laying on a stone, looking up at the sky, and they're just talking. And Rio, they're talking about memories. Again, they're old friends, and they're talking about their memories of hanging out and being friends and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly, Akira just stops talking. And Ryo's going on, and he looks to the side, and Akira's not talking anymore. And then the camera kind of pans out, and the entire bottom half of Akira is missing, like he's been cut in half. And this leads to Ryo, Satan, bursting into tears because he murdered his best friend, and now he's all alone. And I remember the first time I saw this, which wasn't that long ago, it was actually a couple of days ago. I was like, this is the stupidest fucking anime I've ever seen in my life. Like, this show is fucking stupid. The bad guy wins. Now, he ends up getting killed. Like, he gets murked by, like, God or something. You know, like, God destroys the earth or some shit at the end. But I'm like, the fucking bad guy wins at the end. This is stupid as fuck. You know? I was like, this is some dumb shit. You know? Like, when you write a horror story, you know, the virgin, I was just talking about every horror story has a virgin. Mickey was the virgin in this, you know, and she's murdered and her head is put on a pike. The virgin's supposed to survive. In the entire horror genre, you're not supposed to kill the virgin, you know, and you're certainly not supposed to kill the fucking hero. So it was so off-putting that initially I was like, man, fuck this show. I don't even want to talk about it. But then I said to myself, you know what? There had to be a reason for this, right? So I started thinking about it. I moved past my knee-jerk reaction. And I said, why would you write a story in which the most innocent character in the series is brutally murdered and her head put on a pike, and then she's not even avenged? And then I thought about it, and you're like, okay, Satan hates humans. He sees that humans are violent and evil, and they will self-destruct the first chance they get. But not all of them. Not everybody. Because Mickey never hurt anybody. She never did anything to anybody. She was murdered by a wild mob. Akira was trying to save the humans. He ended up getting killed. So then I had to start there. I was like, okay, I can't really quite figure it out why he killed Mickey. So maybe I can figure out why they decided to kill Akira or Amon. And then that's when it clicked. And that was that Amon died because he was human. Ryo wanted to kill all of the humans. And he did. He killed all of the humans. That included Akira. If Akira had lived, he would have been, I guess, technically more of a monster than Satan is. So he died with the rest of the humans. And while that's not my favorite idea, philosophically, it makes sense. You have to take it in a more philosophical way. But it actually makes sense. And Satan is left to weep because he destroyed the world and now he's by himself. You know, there's nothing left. There's nothing, nobody for him to manipulate anymore. Nobody for him to put demons in anymore. His best friend is dead. So now you get the idea that, you know, now it's kind of been, I'm not sure if he was born Satan or he became Satan at some point, but there's this idea that he made Akira, his best friend, he made him a demon so that he could keep him with him forever. That was why he did it. He didn't know that Akira would turn against him. You know, that Akira was more human than he was. Akira is a human. So it was a tragic story, and it's meant to actually alienate Satan in this story. You know, there's more than one way to actually win. Like physically, he couldn't beat him in a fight, But by dying and leaving him alone, he essentially won. Because then Satan didn't get what he wanted. Satan wanted to turn his friend against humanity, and he didn't do it. He failed in that mission. He killed them all, and he got a lot of the humans to turn against others. But if you actually look at the story and you watch the series, there are times where Akira can stop rampaging mobs of humans from doing horrible shit. You know, like they were stoning people who they thought were demons and all this kind of stuff. And he would just stand there and talk them out of it, you know, appeal to their better nature. Say that, look, I mean, I'm a demon, but I'm a human at heart. It's not about what I look like or whether I could turn into whatever. It was a philosophical thing where you were looking directly at the face of a demon who was instead a human being trapped in a demon's body. And if you look at it from that perspective, then I guess Satan does lose. Now, just because the guy's dead doesn't mean that he lost the fight, sure. But he lost the battle, won the war, you know? Because nothing was left. Nothing was left. He wanted demons to run the earth, and it didn't work out that way. A lot of the demons got killed off. And then I guess Thanos snapped the earth out of orbit or whatever. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. And it took a bit because this one is very deep. Devilman is pretty goddamn deep. For a series that was written in the 70s, it was pretty damn deep. I was actually kind of floored by it, and it feels a lot more true to the manga because when I watched the original, I once I finished it, I felt like something was missing, and I Googled it, and I saw that they had made some changes. I didn't know what changes they made, but I knew they had made a significant amount of changes. So when I heard that Devilman Crybaby was more, true to the manga, I was expecting it to be a little bit more violent and all that kind of stuff because I heard that it was a very violent anime. I mean, a very violent manga, but I didn't know it was going to be like this, But it's a good story. I wasn't a big fan of the animation and some of the other stuff that Netflix decided to dump in here, like the gay demons and rape scenes and copious amounts of cum. I don't know why we needed any of that. I don't think any of that added anything to the story. I don't think we needed, cum to fix the story. I don't know. But when you look at things from the perspective of, before we get into the live action movie, which told the same story just in a little bit different way. Angels and humans. The interesting scenario between the two. And how, fallen angels all fell because they were jealous of humans in some way. And you get that Satan or Lucifer, was the sort of the angel where he was very prideful. And he thought himself a sort of higher level of life than humans. And that archetype fits what Rio goes through in this series, that he hates humans. He sees humans as self-destructive. They're despicable. They're hateful. They're all of these horrible things. And he sees himself as being above that. But also he wants to control them. He looks at them like cattle. They need to be controlled. That's why he wants to put demon seeds in them so he can control the demons or whatever. So honestly, you get the idea that Lucifer has always fancied himself as God. which is, depends on your reading of the Bible, that might actually be factual. Another thing you might look at is, the manipulation element of Lucifer, the temptation. In this situation, he doesn't really tempt Akira with power. He just gives it to him, you know, and then thinks that through friendship, he can force him to join his side. Oh, we're friends, so you're going to clearly be on my side. But no, no, not at all. Not at all, really. So it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Now let's talk about the live action movies for a little bit. Now I did have a great deal of issues with the live action movie. I'm not even sure what year it came out. People were taking selfies in it, so I'm pretty sure it was in the last 10 years. Um, so you get that Akira and Rio are best friends from the very beginning. Mickey is the love interest of Akira. She's a very sweet girl. Akira lives in her household because his parents died. From the very beginning of this movie, Rio is cold, callous, and his personality, the guy who plays this character, literally doesn't change his facial expression throughout the entire movie. I mean, literally, he has like one facial expression. That was like one of my biggest problems with the movie, is the lack of emotion out of the actors. I don't know what it was about this, but some of the stuff that should have been emotionally wrenching, they decided that it wasn't going to be. So ultimately, they changed a little bit from. I don't know. Like, I wish I had read the manga first, because I wouldn't know how is Akira become Devilman in the manga. I'm gonna read it eventually. But in this movie, Rio tells Akira about the demons on the earth. Says that his father had turned into a demon. He actually shows Akira his father as a demon. A demon seed spews from his father into Akira, and Akira becomes Amon, the Devil Man. And then he immediately sees that Rio is different, and that Rio is also a demon. And then there's, but I guess before the demon attaches itself to Akira, Rio tries to get Akira to kill him because he'd become a demon too. And Akira refuses, says, "I'm your friend. I'll never do that. I'll never kill you." And that's foreshadowing, of course, the end, where same thing happens as happens in Devilman Crybaby, where he gets cut down. Now the CGI and the animation in this movie isn't very good. It's very cheap. It's like a couple of steps above Power Rangers, so it ain't that great. So they try to figure out what's going on with humanity. There's various sub stories going on here with like Miko, who was in Devilman Crybaby, but I kind of skipped over her elements here. But Akira goes about attacking demons that attack human beings. There's a guy who is a bully, who Rio chopped off the guy's fingers and all this kind of stuff. But now Akira and the guy are becoming friends. This guy gets eaten by a monster. And then the monster is like, "Why are you killing me?" And he's like, "Well, you're a monster and you eat people." And that guy says, "Well, I'm not killing people just because I'm eating them. I feed on humans. That's not my fault." Like, it ain't my fault I eat humans. Humans eat other animals. I eat humans. And he says, I'm not like Satan. Satan wants to wipe out humanity. And then this is the first time Akira has ever hearing of the word Satan. He's like, "Satan? Who the hell is that?" And so we want to figure out who Satan is. Governments around the world create these demon fighting organizations, and they're very brutal. They're going around hunting people, snatching them out of their homes and off their jobs. And you figure out that, of course, the humans are the real villains here, because they're turning in each other for spite. So I think Mickey's dad works, he's a rice farmer, which is, to be a rice farmer in the 21st century. Anyway, he's a rice farmer or something like that, and a guy got snatched off of his workplace because some evil bastard decided he was going to call the demon unit on him because he didn't like him. And then that guy becomes a very important part of the story because he's the snitch who constantly calls the police whenever he doesn't like somebody, to get to sick the demon on them, the demon unit on them. So The demon unit, they find a nest of demons into like a mansion or something like that, and they're just gunning them down. And then here's you get Rio. He's like, look, we're gonna go kill all these humans, and we're gonna save the demons. And then Akira's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And he just watches. He watches Rio do it. Rio goes over there and just starts murdering all of these humans. He just sits there and watches. And that's why I was like, this movie is horrible. This guy's supposed to be a hero, and he's just gonna sit and watch his friend murder all of these humans to protect the demons. And then one of the demons looks at Rio and says, you know, help us, Satan. And then that's when, you know, he's like, Satan? I have heard that name before. He doesn't go confront him about it. He just like, oh, he got called Satan. Wonder what that's about. Like, are you fucking serious? You know, like this guy, whoever wrote this movie had to be DD. I'm telling you. Anyway, human Akira helps. He finds Rio gunning down humans again. He goes over there. Stop doing that with no sense of urgency at all. And then Rio tells him that he is Satan. He's like, yes, I am Satan. And then he turns around and walks away. And Akira just kind of sits there like, wow, my best friend is Satan. What am I going to do about it? Nothing. Apparently, he's just going to let all of these people get killed. He's not going to do shit. He's going to sit back and ruminate about his best friend being Satan. This movie was a mess, bro. It was really dumb. It has some good heart to it. Like when Mickey's dad finds out that Akira is a demon, he says that you know, does Mickey know? And Akira says no, and he says, well, I'm not going to treat you any differently, you know, and I've raised her to do the same. And that's how you get that these are good people. You get that they're good people because even when they figure out that you're a demon, they still treat you like you're a human being. And they show them being very nice to demons and stuff, like feeding them and all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Okay. So the snitch guy from Miko's dad's workplace calls the demon unit on Miko's dad, and their house is invaded. Now, there's another demon named Miko. She runs away before the demon unit gets there. And so they go in there, they beat everybody up, and they're threatening to kill everybody. And then Akira basically admits to being the demon. He transforms in front of everybody so that they can see it. He gives himself up. He's taken away, tortured, shot, and left for dead in the middle of nowhere. Now, while he's virtually unconscious and pretty much believed to be dead, Mickey's entire family is murdered by a rampaging mob, and Mickey's head is placed on a pike. She's stabbed in the back or something like that, and her head is placed on a pike. And so when Akira wakes up from presumably being dead, he immediately goes back home to find his entire family murdered. This is the only time where he shows any emotions whatsoever in the entire fucking movie. And it's not even real emotion. It's just kind of like, Mickey! Because her head is on this pike on the fireplace. She's the only one dismembered like this in this movie, though. Like in Devilman Crybaby, her entire family are murdered. All of their heads are put on pikes. In this movie, it's only hers. Her head is cut off and put on a pike. Everybody else is just stabbed or shot or whatever. And so Akira carries her head, just like is carrying her head to like a church or something like that, and I guess gives her some version of a funeral or something. And then this is where he meets Rio, who says, like, do you believe God exists? Kind of like a little bit of disdain. And they are confronted at this point. Rio hates all humans. He said, I hate all humans except you. So I made you a demon. And he says that human beings are not worth saving. You should come with me and create a new world with me. And Akira's like, no. You know, Mickey's dead. I hate you. I'm going to kill you. And so they vow to kill each other. And then they have the fight scene in which Rio kills Akira and cuts him in half. And that's the end of the movie. The end of the movie is Rio promising to follow Akira in death. It's not quite the same as God nuking everybody from Devilman Crybaby, but uh, something tells me that whatever was in that manga, it probably wasn't meant to be reproduced because I don't think anybody's done a good job of explaining what happens to the world after Akira gets cut in half. So it seems like it might be like the Watchmen, where so many people have a problem with the end of the Watchmen because it's ludicrous. And some tell me that Devilman is probably the exact same way, where it's like a ludicrous finish to the manga, and people are kind of like, I'm just gonna do something different. But it's the exact same story, but it's told a little bit differently. And I thought the movie was fine for like the first maybe 30 minutes. And then the lack of emotion from the male characters especially pissed me off. And I was like, these guys are not upset. The hero just sitting back watching human beings get murdered, and he gave himself the savior complex. I'm going to use this power to save humans. And you just sit back and watch humans get shot down and killed and brutally beaten and everything. You just kind of like, huh, am I supposed to be doing something? Like, yeah, you're supposed to be doing something, you asshole. Get over there and help some people. Nope. And I get it. It's supposed to be like they have a friendship, they're best friends, they're best buddies, they protect each other. Rio protects Akira, and he cut off the guy's fingers because the guy was, bullying Akira. And I get it. They were trying to show you that there's some element of trust between the two of them. And it wasn't until Mickey dies that that trust is broken. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have written my character to watch human beings get murdered. This what I'm talking about is the live action movie, the live action Devilman movie. I haven't the 80s anime. I am not sure how that ended. I don't remember how that ended. But I but this but Devilman pretty much gave me a Superman vibe in the 80s, where he basically it's kind of like Power Rangers actually, where he sort of transformed into Devilman, fight the devil, and then hide from Mickey about who he really is and that kind of stuff. Um, it seemed to be a lot more kid friendly. This movie it wasn't as bloody as the anime was, but it was pretty bloody. It was pretty violent with people getting shot and ripped apart and all that kind of stuff. Not as violent as it probably could be, but I was definitely disappointed in the movie. But then again, I don't think I've seen an anime based movie that I thought I actually liked yet. But Devilman is a really interesting story with some sort of biblical elements to it. With of course them using literally Lucifer, literally Satan, as the villain of the series, and having a very Satan-esque plot to turn humans against each other to show that the humans are the real villains. And this is where I say Devilman and Hellsing are very similar because humans are the real villains in both of them. Um, you look at this show, like when you watch Hellsing from the beginning, you get the idea, okay, the villains are going to be bad guy vampires. And then it's like, nope, 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 they're Nazis. They're bad guy humans. you know? Um, Here, you get the idea that the monsters are going to be the bad guys. Nope, nope, nope. Because not all of the monsters are bad. But the humans are bad because they go around and roving mobs and murder people and put their heads on pikes. They're terrible. So you get the Demon Defense Force in Devilman, and you get like the Iscariots and the Hellsing organization in Hellsing, where basically they're killing human beings. And it's a very interesting thing where the humans turned on each other. But Devilman, I didn't realize this as much until I looked it up. Well, I basically just put Devilman into Google, and I got all of these LGBTQIA scenes of basically people thinking that Rio was in love with Akira instead of that being his best friend, and It was basically like they looked at it like it was a love story, like it was a love triangle, and Mickey being killed off was a way of him making Akira be all about him, but that wasn't really the case because he didn't create the situation in which Mickey got killed. Mickey was killed by rampaging human beings who thought that everybody was a demon. So this is essentially like the witch trials, you know, like the Salem witch hunts. So it's a lot of it is based off stuff like that, where you know paranoia and people's bloodlust starts to run wild, and they don't trust each other anymore, and that kind of stuff kicks in. So it's an interesting show, and I really liked Akina's character. I think he's a good hero. In terms of him being very pure of heart. Now he's very pure of heart in the movie too, where you know he's saving his own bullies. He's going around saving people he don't even know. You know, he's totally in love with Mickey and wants to do all this stuff, protect the world so that he can protect her. It all sounds very good. And then you see in that same movie where he just sits back and watches Rio gun down people and barely raises his voice to stop him. And then lets him run off when he actually catches him in the act of murdering. It was it was pretty ridiculous. So I was like, I don't know. I really want to read the manga though, because I think the manga is probably going to be kick ass. So I certainly want to read the manga. But the original cartoon was okay, from what I remember. Devilman Crybaby didn't need all the sex that was in it. I really, that was very off putting, if we're being honest. And I think the animation was kind of cheap and shitty. But ultimately, I think it was okay. I think the story of Devilman is great, though. You know, you see that Satan wants to use his influence to turn humans against each other. Sort of like, what they call it? Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Self-fulfilling prophecy, where you know human beings are going to turn on each other. It's like, yeah, of course they're going to turn on each other if you tell them that you know all of their neighbors are demons, and then people start disappearing and getting dismembered and swallowed whole by monsters. Yeah, they're going to turn on each other. You had to create an incredibly horrible scenario in order for it to happen. But of course, we know that human beings turn on each other anyway. You know, again, this stuff seems to be based off of the witch trials, which was the exact same situation. People being obsessed with the occult and folks believing that there were folks there with powers. Now, in that situation, it wasn't real. In this situation, it was real because people literally were being eaten by monsters. Now, there was a lot of um, emotional moments in the anime that I didn't mention, like finding out that I think it was Mickey's brother or her dad or something like that had gotten eaten by a monster, and no, her brother had become a monster, and her dad, you know, was about to shoot him because I think he was a police officer in Devilman Crybaby, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill his own son, so the monster ends up killing him and eating him or something like that. It was pretty crazy. So there's there's a lot of elements there, and they did a good job because they have more than once in order to reinforce the story of not all of the demons are evil. There's another character named Miko, Miiko, and both a demon, and she doesn't really want to hurt anybody. In the movie, she never transforms fully. In Devilman Crybaby, she gets raped, and then she ends up killing some guy as he's raping her, and then she continues to have sex with his corpse. You know, as you do, right? Netflix, what the fuck. It's ridiculous, bro. It's a really ridiculous, really ridiculous shit. But so they reinforce that not all the villains are or all the demons are evil. Some of them can help. Some of them are good people, and they're basically being murdered for being different or they're being murdered out of fear. And I guess it's meant to talk about how humans hate things that are different, things that they don't understand, which, makes sense. But I have a feeling that Netflix did not fully adapt that manga the way that it probably should have been adapted. Because it's Netflix, I'm pretty sure it was kind of shitty. That's why I want to read the manga so badly. I want to read it myself. And I'm pretty sure the movie, of course, it's like it's an hour and 30 minutes. There's going to be so many elements out of it that's going to be cut out because it's a movie. So I definitely want to be able to read that for myself. All right. Is there you guys got anything else? Stone Mexican guy. It's a lot of characters inspired by American wrestlers. I have not seen that. I will eventually watch it, I guess. Now that I know about it. Macross, or as we know as Robotech. But yeah, Macross, the original, is very good. I love Macross. Great love story. Maybe one day I'll actually go into it when I decide to watch it again. But Rick being obsessed with that girl was Min May is absolutely ridiculous. What a ridiculous anime. But it's so much better. Like when I got the box set that got all of the Macross stuff in it. Is it that you got the Macross saga and all the stuff afterwards? All the stuff after Macross is not very good, but the Macross saga, watching it all at one time, you know, was awesome. It was very good. Um, but I had fun. All right. Is there anything else, or should we wrap this thing up? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds before we wrap things up to let me know if you guys want to talk about something else. All right. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.